Ladies and gentlemen, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo hosts Good Morning Trumptopia, a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Good morning, Trumptopia. It's Wednesday, December 16th, 2020, and the nightmare is not quite over yet, folks. Happy Hump Day. That bit of electronically remixed digital music was a fanciful bit of chimes and bongles by the title Chaos Cocktail. Digitally mixed, utilizing the application known as Remix Live by your very own favorite animatronic DJ, DJ Z, from his forthcoming, yet-to-be-released album End Times, a new jazz funk 101 remix. Welcome to the show, folks. The future is now. The present is ambitiously attempting to be as cartoony as possible. So is the president. I'm still tickled. I don't know who said this. Authorship totally unknown. Forgive the fail of credit. And I don't know if that damages my credibility. I don't even know if I have credibility. I sometimes wonder if people listen to this show and think it's some sort of practical joke, right? Or some sort of extra layer of, I don't know. I don't know what people think. Was I saying? Somebody said, because you know how when they get together in little groups in Congress, they call themselves the gang of whatever, the gang of 8. I think there was a gang of 14 once back in the day. Somebody bestowed upon the Legal Eagle team that fronted for Trump just now during this Hail Mary of Hail Marys, Hail Mary-a-thon. I think I lost count, folks, but I literally have heard that it was upwards of almost 60 individual different attempts at submitting lawsuits. All but one of which was heard, and they won. I don't remember what it was. I keep saying that, and I feel redundant, and I apologize, folks. I should look that up. Due diligence and all. Oh, I left the window open. Huzzah. Here we are, together again for the very first time in this animated cartoon feature known as Trump Throws a Hissy Fit. I was trying to get to something that I may have derailed myself from the other day. And maybe I said it, but I want to say it again. And I don't want people to get mad, right? Because I just think it's true. And it's not a judgment on the supporters unless they're joining in and blindly just parroting him as some are wont to do. But historians will look back at this totally wrong side of history set of events that Trump has embarked upon after the election. Never mind all that which preceded it. Never mind the entire 4 years of his amazingly, intensely weird tenure in office. And did I not say, at the very beginning, folks, brace yourselves, I think shit's gonna get weirder. And I think intermittently throughout, because it just kept seeming like shit's just gonna get weirder. And it did. Not that I'm psychic or anything. I'm not pretending to be anything other than I am. I just think I was right. And I know when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm wrong. And when I don't know that I'm wrong, and I haven't admitted it yet, I try to take it with panache and grace if someone's accurately and credibly pointing out to me where I am inaccurate. If someone's just blatantly saying foul things and saying that proves that I'm wrong, that means nothing. But if you point to me where I am wrong and say, this is how you are incorrect, showing me actual evidence, not stuff dressed up as evidence. And I think, perhaps, just maybe, that's what happened with Trump's hand-picked judges and other would-be, intended to be sycophants that chose not to be, right? There's no doubt. And while it's delightful, I'm going to go close that window because that bird is driving me nuts. Live on the air, folks. The bird next door, the bird outside, I don't know what kind of bird it is. I don't think it's a pet bird. I think it's some delightful, I don't want to say wild. Feral? Yeah, that's accurate. I digress. I was talking about the bird, not the president. This is about the president. I think the president has actual sycophants and then has people he wants, desires, wishes would join the ranks as sycophants. And I believe that if you take Comey at his word in like his memoir, I haven't read it, I'll admit to you that, but he seems to be authentically trying to express his side of the story. From all accounts and reviews I've heard of that memoir, and this seems like Stone Age ago history, right? Who the fuck is Comey? What's he talking about? Put a pin in that. My only point is that like that example of what actually happened that Trump's never really critically denied, not like successfully. In terms of not in terms of like the accusation of whatever crime or whatever, although the instigating moments are really quite funny and hilarious. That which for the whole thing with him not getting impeached is like salt in the wound, I think. That's part and parcel of the pendulum swing theory, which you'll have to go back a few episodes. I'll have to do an episode where I stitch that all together, because I don't think I've concisely, in one show, expressed all of my pendulum swing theory idea. I've just referenced it a lot. And indicated two things that seem to make it really clear that, like, don't you see how they've pushed it to one end and now they're letting it swing back the other way? But that's just sort of the surface. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the tip of the pendulum. Where was I? Where were we? The bird really threw me off. It was chirping in such a loud, like it was just flying around somewhere really nearby and then back to wherever it started from kind of way. And so no matter where it flew, it was chirping, probably, trying to attract a mate or something, since that's like 76% of everything that is alive does. It's like try to get laid and then move on with life. In nature, I mean, you can't. Sorry for overly humanizing it. Animals don't try to get laid. They try to make babies, which involves getting laid. I don't know why. Why am I letting myself spiral out of control? Because it's real and it's raw and it's unscripted, and I'm really here with you folks, trying to share with you my thoughts. About where we are and what's going on and how it's unfolding. And updating, adjusting. My theory has never been, my opinions have never been set in stone type of opinions, for anybody wondering. I am, for better or worse, dually or unduly influenced by the idea, the principle of the scientific method, which is to, develop a thesis, go measure the things, test, experiment, explore, bash stuff, destroy it, blow it up, measure it, test its chemistry, whatever you conceive of as experimental testing. Come back and improve the theory. Throw the chunks out that are blatantly in denial of whatever the facts may be, and go with the things that are in accordance with the facts and are confirmed by the facts, and that can elaborate on the facts in a way that's verifiable, and you can build on the process. Does that mean, just because I say that I understand that principle and like it and was influenced by it, I don't want to even use the word belief. I was influenced by it in a way that means that I like it and I admire it, and I guess to a certain degree, even if only fancifully, in a sort of homage but not explicitly like literal way, I like to think that intellectually I try to test my models and theories. I don't have a chemistry set anywhere. I'm not getting to that level of things. I'm not dissecting inchworms or earthworms in my secret lab. I'm not that kind of mad scientist. And thus, I'm not inflexible, and I'm more than comfortable with updating and changing and modifying my thesis and my theory. Right? Those are two different things. The thesis is like the tip of the iceberg of the theory, which is the rest of the iceberg. But I digress. What's going on in our world today? Where are we? Who's at the helm? Is anyone steering the car? Is the car still going to go over a cliff? Because I think it's adorable, if I may say that this way. It's adorable that, I don't know how many handful of years ago it was that we first started analyzing and freaking out about the government shutdown cliffhanger, which has now become it's such a often kicked football, and the goalposts have been so shifted around so commonly that we're staring it in the face, and obviously pandemic and COVID-19 and Trump in and of himself as a living, breathing human being are slightly more insanely maddening kind of dilemmas to confront and cope with, I suppose, at least to some people. In my mind, for those curious, the utmost emergency, the tragedy, the thing that we are neglecting the hardest, in my humble opinion, that is of supreme importance, far above and beyond anything in politics, anything in the argument about which organized religion is the organized religion with a capital TH, is that of species-wide, third eye opening, transcendental, like evolutionary healing. Like getting on board with and into the scientific, hopefully, I aspire to being able to say we really did it in a measurable, verifiable, scientific kind of way, where we updated our theory as we went along to be the most real possible thing. But so therefore, I'm jaded by that when it comes to all things current events in the landscape of political milieu and gestalt. And, as I think I've said before somewhere along the line, I kind of watch politics the way some people watch sports ball. And I mean that in dripping with sarcasm and cynicism kind of way. But let's return here to where we are, where we started. I'm still truly daunted, amazed, shocked, blown away, kind of dumbfounded, at a loss for words, for the reality or the apparent fact, right? I'm not there. I can't go to Washington, not until I get all that funding and stuff to go report on this myself. I'm not a journalist, as I have advised you not to, confuse me for. But it has been reported wildly and widely and with some comic overtones, but also some sort of gross factor overtones, that the White House is indeed hosting 25 different parties between now and December 25th, or not now, the beginning of December 25th and December 25th. That's like one party a day from December 1st till December 25th, or 3 parties a day on the weekends or something, right? Like, what? And I know, I've heard it already, the back and forth on it, and some analysis from folks. And apparently, the parties were of limited attendance, and et cetera, whatever. And that's just silly, because he's already done the hard work. That's just, in terms of COVID-19, under the presumption that it's real and not nanobots here to eat out our brains and turn us into living zombies or something, whatever, pick your favorite. There were 40 plus when I stopped counting variations on multiple themes of potential absolute truth conspiracy theories about what COVID-19 really is. Pick a lane. But whichever one your favorite flavor might be, it doesn't seem to be panning out that way. It seems to be panning out like an actual coronavirus from the family of coronavirus, multiple viruses, that is a known and existing problem that has leaped into a new level of easily communicable, highly contagious, while sinisterly, not sinisterly in the sense that, it's engineered or designed, but rather it's quite uniquely, it's not really that unique. It's quite interestingly, that's a true statement, has the capacity as a little evolutionary thing, a thing that is evolving at a much faster rate than we are, by the way. Those kinds of things live little tiny lifespans of hours / maybe days, not weeks, months, or years like you and I do, which is the part that I think we often underestimate and therefore then can't wrap our brains around. The individual members of these colonies of infection live fleeting brief moments, make decisions, mind you. Motherfuckers are choosing things. They really are. There's no other way about it. They choose things the way plants and trees have the capacity to make choices that are appropriate and necessary for the functioning of plants and trees. And they do. You can call that a crazy statement. You can then go do research into The Secret Life of Trees. It's a brilliant documentary. I think there's multiples. And into the very notion that all that is alive, and maybe even that which is considered quote unquote inanimate matter, is actually constituted of, made up of consciousness. I don't demand that you believe that blind faithfully. I just encourage you to fucking look into it. I've looked into it 30 years plus a little bit of, meditating on it, and it's the thing that makes the most sense. I digress. We still have a ways to go. Like, New Year's will be an interesting, beautiful, almost done kind of, we're so close, but not really, because what counts in this framework, in this moment, in this exhausting series of events that have been this particular political cycle, is January 20th, when the system grinds its gears to that that point of full circleness in the cyclical revolution that is the political machinery of the presidency. And I don't mean in some nefarious, I just mean in the simple state of the fact of the matter of the way it operates. If we may call the rules and norms and expectations and functions of government as ongoing institution that is not meant to be the sole property of any given individual, but rather an ongoing function that operates in service of the entirety of the population, right? So the transitions as of late have been fascinating. And I asked in a previous episode how many Hail Marys does he have. I don't know how many in total have been executed, but it really has been a clusterfuck of Hail Marys. Like a Hail Mary season of Hail Mary passes from Team Trump. And it seems that in the intervening time, Team Trump, i.e., I don't know if this was really his own original idea or some sort of groupthink that has evolved over time, but it's not so terribly unexpected. But they seem to be overtly signaling and announcing out loud, as opposed to just executing quietly in the back rooms of power, in the smoke-filled, as the cliche was once popular, the smoky rooms of behind closed door power, that they're going to throw one final Hail Mary pass on the day of the formal counting and certification of the Electoral College vote by Congress, which is imminent. I don't remember right this hot second exactly how many days away, but it's days away. And I'm not entirely sure where I stand on assessing this actual implementation of the one theoretical Hail Mary pass that I've long said from at least the days leading up to the election, if not on election nights plural itself. I think it was during like the first or second election night coverage that I did for this show, for our show, that I talked about, this one concerning attempt for Hail Mary maneuvers at the very end of the thing. But I think that given the context now, Trump has unfortunately painted himself into the worst possible corner, the ugliest corner from which he could try to execute or launch this penultimate, or actually ultimate, to be accurate, because I don't think he's got a maneuver after this. If there's a maneuver after this, then he really was, no. I don't think, even if there is a maneuver after this, he's just a bullheaded, steamroller that will just keep bashing away at the same idea in as many different ways as possible until he gets exhausted and bored of it. I don't think that Trump himself has had some master-minded master plan from decades ago, and I don't buy into QAnon theory. We can put a bunch of pins up on the board and talk about that at a later date, especially if I get rolling with the new programming protocol, which I'll speak on a little bit in depth at the end of today's episode. But experiments in that regard have begun, just so you know. So I digress. This isn't 7D chess. This is Trump trying to pull the same scam in a new format and trying to overturn, as opposed to just walk away and pardon himself, I think, right? And it's Trump going way past going full Nixon. He's like become Nixon and Agnew together, like Voltron, to become some sort of mega corrupt orange-toned, religiously, beloved. Ironically, I don't know how, why. That's a whole mess. But he's beloved by the religious right, scam artist of a con man that's got to run off or escape his own political shenanigans at the end of his political career. Now, depending on which media outlet you believe, there's various possible new seats of power from which Trump will reign supreme, i.e. he's going to take over Newsmax, he's going to launch Trump News, which is not impossible. I don't know that he's got the money. Arguably, he's still in $400 million worth of debt. But he is more brazenly than ever before quite literally fleecing his own base, begging them for money to help win in Georgia the two seats that would determine whether or not this is a partially divided government or something that, Team Blue can actually just sort of get what they want done. And, there's opinions on that and the end result, and there's cataclysmic levels of fear-mongering about it. And ultimately, I think it's not really that big of a deal, but that's a whole other level of analysis we can get into. What I'm trying to alert everyone to is, I'm not breaking some ground here. It's widely reported, and if accurate, if it bears out and it proves to be really accurate, he's asking the base for even more money. 5.5 weeks after having literally, overtly, critically, overwhelmingly lost the popular vote for the second time and lost the Electoral College vote for the first time, because he didn't win the Electoral College vote the first time, to supposedly help these two Republican senators in Georgia, right? Which he was literally just days ago implying quite heavily, although not overtly, quite literally saying, don't vote in that race. It's so rigged, it's corrupt. No matter how many of you vote, the Democrats are going to win. Right? So it is a valid question that must be asked, I think. I'll agree with it. It's already out there in the public discourse. Has the Trump-topian takeover and its maximum pressure campaign on the Republican Party backfired to a certain degree, or begun to expose itself as ultimately self-undermining, to reveal itself as self-undermining? Because Republicans are walking away in droves. I see increasingly announcements former Republicans at all levels of, from all walks of life, Republicans who consider themselves true, lifelong, party members, which sounds like communist talk to me, but let's not go off on that tangent. That are now, one guy was just explicitly announcing, and he was like the second or third guy in the last 36 hours. And it's not new. It started when he won the nomination. When Trump won the nomination, people have been walking away from the Republican Party. It may have been a very subtle, very quiet, very gentle drip, 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 drip that has been mostly ignored, especially, I think, by the Trump-acquired portion of the new Republican base. And I don't think I'm just parroting some media outlet. I think, those of us who are watching the world events are maybe coming to some agreement on that, because not everyone agrees. But I see it now. And, this gentleman, whoever he was, I didn't catch his name. I was walking by the television. It was just on in the background, so I could kind of be vaguely aware of what's going on. But he was literally spelling out that he had been a tried and true lifelong Republican. He left when he felt like the water was getting too hot with Trump, when his frog was getting boiled out, and he's like, I couldn't handle it anymore. He became an independent, and then as an independent, he came to certain terms and said, I now have to become a Democrat in order to feel comfortable and proceed. And I'm not endorsing that necessarily. I'm just pointing it out. And sharing with you the following. I think this is the sort of threshold moment. If my original theory adapted and evolved day to day, week to week, month to month, episode to episode that I've shared with you over the last 4 years, is remotely accurate, then what we're seeing is the threshold moment that they wanted to, whoever the real architect of the current presidential momentum might be. Because I do think that sort of thing happens. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I'm not trying to piss anybody off or offend anybody to the point of endangering my life. Please don't try to kill me. And I say that out there because people are flinging death threats at other people like it's trendy. Everybody simmer down. But free speech and free will require me to say, there's probably folks that are powerful enough that agree to slates of potential nominees, right? And Trump must have come up and been like, he wants to run. Yeah, sure, let him play the game. It'll be fun. He can be like a bull in a china shop. He'll really radicalize the right in a direction that will split it up, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure conversations are had at that level, right? Because, I don't know, they tell us so in their own conspiracy theory content. Therefore, it's absurd to me to think that, to give my faith, my complete and absolute blind faith to any political player. Even theoretically, if it's someone I knew, like if someone I knew personally was running for office and ultimately ran for president, I'd have to be like, all right, former personal acquaintance. At some point, they're going to be like, and now we've got our claws in you and you got to do things the way we want. Because they always do, right? And either... And I love the different theories. It breaks down in interesting ways. But I don't agree with them hardly at all. Most any of them. But either we just have the horrible luck of always magically attracting and selecting for ourselves the worst and the most vile of corrupt people, which we then vilify and objectify according to our tribalized, mutually opposed, mutually co-creating red versus blue teams of political antagonism, this duopoly. And I like, that's some awful shit luck. Or there's some oblique, sublimated mechanisms by which, Gates gateway filters are manipulated, and certain pre-selected types of people get into the game. And then they get to play ball, right? They get to actually be the president, I think. And therefore, even if that's true, and we could have the debate, because I'm not making wild accusations here. I don't pretend to know. I'm just theorizing here. We could have the debate that maybe those people who act as gatekeepers, who might be considered the, quote, system of oppression, or to be less rude and a little bit more politically correct, just the system. We can think of them as the real person behind the green curtain that is the Wizard of Oz. Whoever they may be, let's give them the most benign benefit of the doubt and imagine that they have, through whatever rationale, the right and the duty and the responsibility to play those games and create those mechanisms and to operate in those ways. It appears to me that, one of the things that might be going on in that regard is the experiment of, how far can this duopoly, this mutually co-creating, tribalistic, us versus themified, confrontational system, how extreme, how polarized, how mutually societally mutually confrontational and societally self-destructive can it get? And so if you ask that kind of question, it's like, how would they achieve that? Well, by pitting as many people in groups, in chunks of tribalized, otherified, us versus themified, hyper-vilified, my party's righteous, your party's evil, echo-chambered kind of red versus blue kind of dynamic. And thus here we are, right? But so Trump's ambitions, whatever they were as an individual, suited the needs of those. And I don't think he got in there as I snuck past your elite control of the evil, diabolical system and I will now destroy you. I think he got placed there to see what would happen if someone played that role, but ultimately, failed, and we let the pendulum swing back the other way. Call me crazy, but barring any really, truly extreme, outbreak of genuine and authentic civil war, which, knock on wood, knock on your skulls, knock on whatever you believe you need to knock on. We don't really want, it will be and has been in prior times an atrocious waste of life. And as I keep saying, like a fucking broken record, 5,000 years of previous human history riddled with violence and endless wars to decide things prove that we, if that worked, we would be in utopia by now, for shit's sake. And we totally aren't, are we? No, we're here. We're in this mess. And thus, we come to the kinds of conclusions I've made about what kinds of options might be before us. But I digress. I've rambled on for quite a bit, and I should, because I can't remember whether or not I already have, I should play some music here in the, quote, middle of the show, because that's the new format I thought would be fun and interesting to keep exploring. Besides, that's from a long before. Then there's the other new format, which I'll tell you about in a hot second. Thanks for your attention and thoughtful listening, folks. Enjoy this wee bit of digital distraction known as Dawn Trance, mixed by DJ Zed for the fictional album End Times on the application entitled Remix Live, utilizing the Trap 101 pack. What's up with that guy he's replaced Barr with? That's a big question, folks. Put an eye on that. I mean, not just because he seems at first blush not exactly qualified for the job, but because, you know, he's already been quite explicitly and overtly involved in some of the most questionable pattern of cover-up type, you know, using the Department of Justice the wrong way kind of things that they've all done together. And, you know, there's less than a month left, but a lot could be done. You could do all kinds of really wacky things, having not really drained the swamp, but rather filled it with your own monsters. Which is, you know, the sort of legitimately alarming place we find ourselves in. I'm not too terribly concerned about a real, quote, civil war, although it remains something that people keep talking about. And that, I don't bring that up to be fear-mongery or be alarmist. That's, in my humble opinion, like a person having a really strong fever and trying to work through it. Like trying to like deny that as an obvious sign of like you're about to get your ass handed to you and not feel well. Fomenting at the mouth for self-destruction, for shooting and killing the fellow citizens of your own nation state is a toxic, self-destructive, in my humble opinion, symptomology of a deeper spiritual trauma. And we're not gonna heal that by engaging in civil violence, in civic violence, engaging in community violence, public violence against our own neighbors and fellow residents of this same place. There's sorry, I'm getting fidgety because the subject matter gets a little serious. We live in the real world, right? We live and breathe and die in the real world, and there are those that we must share this space with that believe might makes right, and power is privilege, and privilege can be taken by sheer brute force, violence, and will. And arguably that is symptomatic, symptomological. It is expressive of a deep-rooted. It is the symptomology that is expressing a deep-rooted spiritual trauma. And while we live, there's a pragmatism to what I'm trying to express, right? We still got to live every day. We still have to cope with reality as it is, and try to build the better mousetrap, and try to create, manifest, invoke the spiritual revolution, as opposed to yet another bloody, violent, physical revolution that just repeats the cycle of violence and power, and violence and power, and violence and power. But call me crazy. I think that's, always been the calling. I think that's woven into the very fabric of reality itself, is an invitation to set aside all the, quote, worldly things of man, end quote. The things we've invented that we take seriously and consider very important, up to and including especially all the violent ones, in order to connect with, investigate, and come to understand, come to be in direct communion with reality, nature itself, the fabric, the cosmos, the infrastructure, the very womb that we're nestled in. We're supposed to know it, and know it as ourselves, and through that journey and adventure achieve a kind of healing that is hitherto unknown, undiscovered, unremembered, unexplored. Which is radically, way over there in left field to a lot of people, especially if they're deeply anchored and rooted in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment talking points and marching orders and pedagogy and dogma and conditioning of political party politics and that agenda, even in its most benign form or benign interpretation, which is a legitimate way to look at it. We could argue all kinds of ways to analyze or interpret political action, political activity in the world, up to and including the most darkest and most nefarious and scary version from the conspiracy spectrum of theories. with their different theses. I don't know how you conjugate thesis. Or even if you have to, maybe it's just always thesis. Even if there's, if you're talking about one thesis or two thesis, multiple thesis, it's all the same word. I love that kind of conjugation. But I digress, folks. And I've rambled I'm way over time. What can we do about the state of the world? We can heal. And maybe I'm a broken record. And maybe I'm a little crazy, hippie, new age, nut job, woo-woo crazy, podcast, talk show, radio, opinion host. But I think that no one, as so-and-so, insert name here, said once, Terence McKenna, I think? Thank you very much. As Terence McKenna said once, what did he say? No one is so advanced that they should not work on themselves, or something to that effect. And there you have it. Is that the solution to the world? Yes, I think so. There's a meme, author, creator of meme unknown, but it features the actors from that band. And that's a funny thing, but they're a band, they're a pair of musicians. I don't know if band is quite fair, but they are a pair of musicians that perform together as stand-up comedy. Something with birds in it? Something, I forget, but they're from New Zealand and they're brilliant and I really adore them, and I'm terrible at names and I can't remember what they're called right now. Flight of the Conchords. Thank you so much for that reminder. Flight of the Conchords. And they, I don't know if this actually happened in their show, but someone made a meme. I wish I had it up in front of me so I can actually just read it to you. It's so much better than me trying to butcher paraphrasing it. But it says, we got to change things, but not through violence. So then through magic? And I think it's supposed to be sarcastic, like it's impossible. And I'm like, my response to that is yes, through magic. Through the healing, transformative magic of third eye opening, transcendental evolutionary evolution, and that healing that all the avatars that we worshipped for a while there and turned into religions and now radically ignore kind of seem to have all been pointing to. Because they kind of have that in common once you dig past all the things that make them different. Just saying. And it's precisely exactly the kind of thing we don't have time or feel like, we believe we don't have time to attend to our own spiritual well-being because of the clusterfuck of political crazy and pandemic and everything that is the personal context of our lives as we find them, as they have evolved during this miraculously bizarre, if not most miraculously most bizarre of all years, the year of our Lord 2020. And I love saying it that way, even though I'm not at all. I don't think that I've known people who claim to have been excommunicated by the Catholic Church, which I find fascinating. I haven't, but I definitely excommunicated them, really hardcore once in my life. I've come full circle and have forgiven them, and as an institution, if I may. But I radically rejected them at a very early age. But I'm fascinated, and there's a deep sort of nostalgic attachment to many of their accoutrements in terms of how they speak of the divine and how they approach, things as discipline and as practice. Not claiming to have my own well-articulated spiritual practice in any way, shape, or form. Just acknowledging that they were, for better or worse, a formative influence in my life. And there's plenty to criticize Don't get me wrong. I've forgiven them like a horrible criminal that committed crimes, has paid their, time, which they haven't, but they should. And I digress. Where am I going? What was I talking about? Dear Trumptopia, this Hail Mary pass, A, is an affront to Mary Magdalene. There. I got to the radical weird place I really wanted to get to. Because even when I was using the phrase before, and it bugs me when he says it. I don't know that he's used it a lot, but it gets used now, and we're just hearing Hail Mary everywhere. Hail Mary pass, Hail Mary pass, Hail Mary pass. And I'm like, stop it. It's rude. Mary Magdalene deserves deeper and more profound respect than that. And quite curiously and quite weirdly, and is it synchronicity? Is it random coincidence? Do either of the two exist in a profound, meaningful way, or is it all blah? But during the course of the last week, I saw on more than one occasion the question of the divine feminine and why an overt and evenly, equitably footed equality, to the masculine divinity positioned entity, why there is no direct reference to that in the Judeo-Christian tradition as we are familiar with it, with postmodern, post-King James versions of the Bible. And put a pin in the King James version of the Bible, because that's an interesting subject matter in and of itself, unto itself, about which we'd love to come back and talk more. But this was supposed to be Good Morning Trumptopia, and it's gone on way too long. And what was I trying to say? This political theater of trying to take back the stolen election is a gambit of emotional manipulation. I don't think I side for the benefit of Mr. Kite with Team Blue. And it's not because I'm a shill for them, although I have been accused of that before. But then again, I've been accused of being a shill for the extreme right, too, which makes no sense at all. It's just that if I disagree with people, then they automatically knee-jerk say that kind of stuff, I think. And I disagree with both sides fundamentally, but there's plenty of things that each of them hold as tenets that I don't disagree with, and that I would love to separate out from and coalesce into its own thing. But that's a whole nother episode. What I'm concerned with is what he will do, dear Donald J. Trump, with the money he's siphoning, literally leeching, milking from his base, and funneling mostly into a new super PAC, which he will then, super PACs are basically slush funds. Thank you, Citizens United, and corporations are people too, very much. Now politicians don't have to go to Sweden and Switzerland and get, secret wire transfers from mysterious sources in unknown, places in foreign governments. They can just do it themselves on their own base here with super PACs. And if that isn't exactly the kind of corruption that he's supposed to be fighting, I don't know what is. And I don't know how many times over in the course of the last 4 years, I and everybody else in the resistance, the unlikely coalition of voices that are speaking out against Donald Trump in real time, have pointed out he's a flim-flam artist. He's a total look, I showed you a thing over here, and I'm doing a thing over there, and this other thing is distraction, and this other thing is putting money in my pocket. But there it is, the epitome. He's going to walk away from whatever happens between now and January 20th, having fleeced his flock. And they're going to resent it once they come around to swallowing the bitter pill of him having done it and gotten away with it. And having built what will probably be, and I'm not trying to be rude and hateful and judgmental and or wildly delusionally just against him for no reason. I'm talking about the facts of the matter of how he runs things. He runs things and then it goes bankrupt. And he has to file for bankruptcy. And or he gets sued and he has to settle lawsuits, because he doesn't really hardly ever win lawsuits, does he? He just talks about it as if he does, as if he can, as if he's destined to, and then he doesn't. 50 lawsuits, 2 of which went to his own hand-picked Supreme Court judges that he overtly, shamelessly, criminally, in my opinion, signaled to on television, live on TV, that they should, in multiple ways, the way he said to Russia, can you maybe find those emails and hack them and then, share them at America? Could you maybe help me win the election, please? And they, bless their hearts, despite being hand-selected and nominated by Donald Trump, they've stuck to some sort of moral high ground and have refused to play ball with him in a way that I think he was expecting they would just sort of roll over on. I mean, just the way he was surprised and shocked and butthurt. And history will look back, and Trump's behavior between now and January 20th will be the living definition of the newest, highest order of absurdly out of control sore losership, bad sportsmanship, which used to be an important thing in this country and its culture and its mental milieu. It was supposed to be bad sportsmanship. We don't tolerate that. We're good about we're gentlemen. There's no landed gentry in America, not anymore, because they were slave owners after all. The few people that were indeed actually landed gentry are the closest thing to it in these stolen lands that we call the United States of America. And we get to that point, but I digress. In the coming days, we will discover what his true exit strategy is. He doesn't seem to be willing to resign and have Pence pardon him. Although he might pull that as his final surprise shock, a Hail Mary card in the last 48, 72 hours, right? It's not impossible that days from Biden being inaugurated, he might do something like that. We already know he overtly plans not to attend. We already know that it has been widely reported that he apparently is making plans to have some sort of event on his own property to counterbalance the system, installing the next political actor in the White House. It tickles me pink that the conspiracy theorists themselves run around quoting Shakespeare, all the world's a stage, but they don't get that means that their own favorite political actors are themselves the puppets. But I digress. I think that for those who are unclear, I want to point out, I think it has always been, from the beginning, of my humble opinion, that whatever the game is, Trump is playing and participating and willingly, knowingly, complicit in that which y'all are complaining about. The system let Donald Trump be Donald Trump and gave him 4 years. And probably dangled the promise of 8 years, but is taking it away because the system got what it wanted, whatever that was. Oh, gee, I don't know. Chaos, 300,000 plus dead, and the population of the country pretty much evenly split in thirds. Team red, team blue, and everybody the fuck else. And kind of everybody yelling and screaming and foaming at the mouth at each other, and or freaked out by all the agitation and cowering in fear, and or jaded and annoyed and distracted, and or et cetera, et cetera. A full array of reactions are being expressed by the American public. And I say to everyone with love, hey, we're all human beings here, folks, right? Or at least we're technically, in theory, supposing that we all are. And gee whiz, why are we letting ourselves get seduced down this slippery slope of ego-trappy seduction towards some kind of self-destructive set of would-be historical actions, when we could otherwise be building a better mousetrap, healing ourselves and each other, and transcending the system so that we actually function in a way that benefits everyone and not just those who aspire to aggregate and abuse power. Is that a crazy question to ask? I don't know. But I've been on for longer than 60 minutes. Not in years, but in actual minutes and seconds. So I'm just going to wrap it up here, friends, and say namaste and thank you for tuning in, listening, considering, not taking it as a blind faith thing that I demand that you believe, but rather as an expression of my own thoughts that you may go forth and ponder them and consider them in your own way and in your own light, so that we may continue the public discourse and dialogue and advance towards some greater unity and some higher order of collaborative civic action that actually heals, houses, feeds, and otherwise is of service to the greatest number of people, and not just about the rich people getting richer, etc. And until the next time I get to come at you with my free speech crazy, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. May your spiritual journey and private spiritual practice, may your own unique spiritual path unfold before you in a way that is transformative and healing, and for your own greater good and the greater good of all humanity. If I may, a final utterance or prayer. May humanity remember and rediscover how to achieve metaphysical, species-wide, third eye opening, transformational, evolutionary healing